into the prison system to make money was the intent from the very beginning. And you call him Jeff Sessions. That's not his name. His name is Jefferson Bogard Sessions III. Someone who is not Jeff from Tool Time. He's not someone that we should take lightly. And I think when you see the other members of the Congressional Black Caucus being very furious about this, it's because they've seen this type of evil before in the Justice Department during the Richard Nixon years. They're here to play. They're here to play a game that means locking up more people, taking away more property, and specifically limiting the individuals who need help. When you go to prison, you do something. No other country in the world treats people like we do. And when they get out, it's the new Jim Crow. When you get out, you can't get a job. I would specifically fight hard to ban the box, to make sure that we have entry programs, and to make sure that each and every person, when they come home, has the right to vote.
I think it is so important that people understand expungement and they are able to get their record expunged. I think there are so many people who have went to prison and have gone to prison and they've gone on an unfair pretense. And when I say unfair, they've gone because of their color, and their crime was not necessarily a crime that should have sent them to prison. And when I talk about that, I want to talk about some of our African Americans who have went to prison for marijuana, and you have people who have not gone to prison, and we're dealing with opioid right now, and they've not gone to prison. So I think there should be expungement, and I think there should be job fairs to give people a good chance once they get out of prison to be able to live in society properly.
So not everybody that goes to prison gets a life sentence. So I think it's important that if you go to prison and you're not given a life sentence, then I think it's our responsibility to rehabilitate you and put you in a position that when you come out of prison, that you're on a track so that you don't turn around and come right back in. And I can say that when I've talked with a lot of families in the 13th Congressional District, this is a big issue because in the 13th Congressional District, we have more black males that are in jail than we have that are in college. And I can tell you that the one thing I hear more and more is that when family members come back home, that there's not opportunity for them. And I think that earlier when I talked about that gap between opportunity and the people that live there, this is something that this is where we need to step in, because I can tell you that when you listen to just about any employer today, when you listen to the people that have jobs in the 13th Congressional District, they say they can't get employees. So this is an opportunity that the federal government, that your 13th Congressional District representative can do, is bring back dollars for workforce development tied to reentry programs in the 13th Congressional District, so that when residents that live in the 13th Congressional District that do return from jail or prison, that we have a pipeline for them to get workforce training and plug them into the workforce. And I think checking the box, I think should be the bottom, that should be the minimal thing. I mean, any of us, that just makes sense, we could do that tomorrow, but you have to go beyond that. Just eliminating a box is not going to create opportunity. So this is something that really affects people in the 13th Congressional District, and this is something that really deserves a lot more conversation.
So first and foremost, we need to ban the box, full stop, right? If we're saying if we're reforming people or people's pay their debt to society, then we don't need to keep holding it up in their face. Beyond that, one of the things we don't talk about with mass incarceration is the number of women that we incarcerate in this country and the collateral consequences of mass incarceration. The United States of America incarcerates 1/3 of the world's women. The United States women's incarcerated population, we hold 1/3 of the incarcerated women. And between 1980 and 2016, that the incarceration rate for women has increased 700%. Beyond that, when we talk about recidivism and the reasons for recidivism, part of that is because people that go to prison, they're not eligible. Federal people who are convicted of federal crimes are not eligible for public assistance. So temporary families in need, women can't get those benefits, and so it's very, very important that we focus on sentencing reform and criminal justice reform.
You know, the sentencing guidelines are very interesting in terms of what judges have the ability to do. I think that judges need to be given more authority in how people are sentenced. And you'll see time after time where the judge did not actually want to give a particular sentence, but had to because of the strict sentencing guidelines. So I think that that's something that needs to be revisited. In terms of, you know, jails being, or prisons being a place of rehabilitation, there's so much more that can happen in the jail system. And so how do we create programs that really prepare you know, prisoners to succeed once they are out of prison? I mean, you can't, it's one thing to look at transitional housing facilities and programs once they get out, but we have to begin that process as soon as they get into prison. So once they are released, they will be able to be productive members of society and will not feel that they need to commit crimes to go back to prison. I think that one of the other important things is that when people are released from prison, you know, do they have the resources that they need? How much money do they need? How much money do they get? Do you just get $25 or $50 and they put them on a bus and send them on their way? And so we really have to look at the entire system. We have to look at transitional housing systems once they are released from prison, and making sure that those programs are longer than 2 years, but also, but actually making sure that perhaps some of them are longer term programs, so that if they are not able to secure housing or to become self-sufficient to make enough money to move out of the transitional housing, their time can be extended. And also we have to look at the school to prison pipeline, which is a major issue, and the reason that so many of our people have been in prison in the first place.
This is an important question for the 13th Congressional District. No matter where you live in the 12 different communities within the district, we actually do have the most returning residents that live in the 13th. And so this is a real issue that we really think, as your member of Congress, I'm going to be tackling. The one thing that you're going to hear me talking about is a restorative justice model to the criminal justice system. In the community court program, this is the first ever program in the state of Michigan, was appropriated through the public health budget, $500,000. And this is an amazing program. We have 21 different community-based organizations attached to the community court. A real judge from the court system, but it's in the community. And instead of you having to, instead of a fine or whatever it's real community service through the neighborhoods. And it's happened, it's not the first ever in the country. The best model, which is the Cadillac model, which is something I'm hoping to do for the 13th and for the whole state really, is the Red Hook Community Justice Center in New York. And that community, they saw a tremendous amount of reduction, and not only those returning residents not going back into the system, but also seeing them elevated, be able to have the kind of confidence and dealing with the trauma that it took for them to go through that process, through the correction system. The other thing you're going to see me really focused on is, you know me about corporations, this for-profit prison system in our country needs to stop. From the guy that owns Detroit Pistons, who actually benefits from the telephone system that they have my prisoners go through, like literally my residents that are in the system, they have to go through that process. So you're going to see me literally cutting their legs off. Not literally cutting their legs off, Chanel, but their funding source, because it needs to stop. It's our public funds, it's our money, and they shouldn't be misusing it that way.
Thanks. So I have 2 correction officers in my family. One is in leadership here in Michigan, everyday person just like me or you, and then the other is in Texas doing it. And they both say the same thing. Bottom line is we need to be doing all the work that we can to keep folks from ever going to prison. And really how, in my mind, our member of Congress can help to do that. is to get better, more adequate funding in our public education system, from pre-K all the way through college. So, and then also, we don't hear a lot of folks talking about this, and I've heard some great things here. But grant dollars on the federal level for all of the community organizations that are doing work every single day through churches, and just community group and community organizations that have C3s that are out here touching folks every single day, that are helping to change lives and keep people from getting into that prison system. I do work now in the private sector where I make sure we spend resources and give resources to those kinds of organizations. And when you talk to those folks, they say, Chanel, we're out here, we're on the ground, we're doing the work, we're helping to keep, kids from getting into the prison system, but we don't have the resources that we need. If we just had a little bit more, we could touch more folks and change more lives. The other thing that I want to say too is, we need to have more of a willingness, and I'm going to tell you because I do this work as well in the private sector.
Time, please.
We need more of a willingness on the state level and also on the county level to allow companies and entities to be able to come into jails and train folks who we know are coming out. I'm running right now an initiative to get that done in Wayne County with Sheriff Napoleon, but to train folks to be truck drivers. My point is that they need to know when they're in the system that there is hope for them when they get out. But we've got to have a system that's open to partner with businesses who have these tools, who want to go into these systems to be able to get these
Chanel,
folks
you've
trained.
gone way over. Thank you. We're going to take one more intermission. Our food has officially arrived, so I apologize for the logistics issue. Candidates? Oh, I'm sorry.
But yeah, okay.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Not cut me off, man.
You're right.
No, that's all right. Make sure, man.
Jump in the gun.
No, that's all right. I understand my time. It's all good. Listen, the first thing we need to do is we need to ban the box. The second thing we need to do is get rid of mandatory minimums. The third thing that we need to do is if you have a record and you get out, it's like wearing a scarlet letter. You can't get college loans. You can't live certain places. These are things that we need to get rid of. We need to make it easier for people to be able to integrate from society. But let's be clear. There are a lot of folks up there in prison right now that shouldn't be in there anyway. And if you're an African American person, you are 7 times more likely to be wrongfully convicted of murder. You are 2.3 times more likely to be wrongfully convicted of sexual assault. And you are 12 times more likely to be wrongfully convicted of a drug crime. I think that we also need to have a federal audit of the correction system to make sure that we identify institutional racism that is going on in our system. It is wrong and it must stop. And I think these are things that we need to do. And we also, I think, need to change and curb on drugs. There's been nothing but a war on black and brown people. I think it's fundamentally wrong that you've had people who have been arrested. If you're an African American person and you use marijuana, you are 4 times more likely than your white counterparts to be arrested, even though you use it at the same rate as you do. And if you use drugs, you are 6 times more likely to be arrested for using drugs, even though your white counterparts use it more than you do. This is fundamentally wrong. And as a black person, you're 6 times more likely to be convicted and serve sentences of 50% longer. This is an issue of institutional racism within the system, and when I'm a congressperson, I'm going to get up there and pass policies to stop it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Sorry about that. Now we'll have our intermission. The food is here. Candidates, please meet me back here.
goes on till 10 and I'm 4th grade. Yeah, but I have been at work since 10 this morning. Well, no, like 9:45. Every minute counts. Every minute counts. It's a 12-hour day. Bye.
No.